All right, we're going to go over some other credit terminology that you need to be aware of. I'm not going to go over all these, but kind of hit a few of the main ones that I really want you guys to know. And then you can always refer back to this page for anything that you need to look at for worksheets or study. And then after I go through these terms, we'll look at a couple of the worksheets. I want you to talk about credit scores. We'll look at the credit card statement worksheet that you can complete, and then this worksheet called How Much Does It Really Cost? And then I'll also show you the car buying activity that you guys can work on over the course of the 2 days with credit. Okay. So just kind of highlighting a few of the main points here. Looking down the list, like I said, I'm not going to go over every one of these, but a couple terms I want to make sure we do understand. Okay. The term credit bureau. Okay. So our credit bureau group, this is when you take out a loan from for a car, let's say, or a house. The bank that's you're getting a loan through or is looking to approve you is going to use a credit bureau, which would be Equifax, Experian, or TransUnion most likely, to ultimately decide if you qualify. Okay, to decide if you can be trusted with the loan. Okay, so what the credit bureau is going to do is they're going to pull your credit score. Okay, and your credit score is what's going to basically show whether or not you have the ability and the capacity to pay back that loan, and whether or not you have the character, so can you be trusted. Okay, so this is what a credit score looks like. Okay, it's going to be on this wheel. All right, so it can be anywhere from 300 to an 850, being the best, to awful. All right, so think of it as like a grade that you get in school. Think of it as like your GPA. Okay, if you have a high GPA, good grades, much better chance of getting into college. If you have a low GPA, low grades, much harder chance of getting into college. So it's the same concept, for getting a loan. Okay, so if you look here, this kind of tells you what the credit score is going to be looking at. And a couple of the main things is your payment history. So this is that character piece of the 3 C's. Do you pay your bills on time? Are you late on payments all the time or not, right? So do you have a good payment history? If you have a good payment history, your credit score will go up. Okay, it's going to look at how much you owe in debt. All right, so 30% of your score is going to be, do you have multiple debts out there? All right, new credit is how many new debts have you taken on recently, and then the length of history, credit history, and credit max are the other 2 parts to look at. How long have you had lines of credit for? Are you 1 year into having a credit card or a loan, or have you had lines of credit for 20, 30 years? Okay, so your credit score again is going to be what they're going to look at to determine whether or not you qualify for a loan. But your credit score today is being used for multiple things. So I made a little list here so you can see. Not only are they going to use it to determine if you qualify for a loan, insurance companies are now using them to determine like your policy rate, how much you're going to pay for an insurance policy. Phone companies will use it to determine if you qualify for service or loans for cell phones. Landlords are going to use your credit score to determine if they can trust you with a lease to rent an apartment. And even now, I'm finding out that companies are looking at using your credit score to determine if they want to hire you or not. So they're using it for that character piece and kind of a reputation idea of, can you be trusted, especially if you're going to be doing a job maybe when you're dealing with some other company's money. So they're going to identify, well, if you can't be trusted with your own money, then are we going to be able to trust you with a company's money? All right, so your credit score is a big deal. It's being used for many things today. Okay. All right, going back to the terminology list, see a couple other things I just wanted to hit. Debt we talked about already. Default. This term means when you default on a loan, that means you've stopped your payments. Okay, so you've stopped making the payment on a cell phone, you stop making payments on a car, a mortgage. Okay, so it's just you're failing to meet that agreement. You sign an agreement, and it's what we're going to eventually call a legal binding agreement. All right, and if it's legally binding agreement, that means the courts and the government can get involved. And if you're not making those payments, that's where, let's say you stop making your payments on a car. You've all heard the term repossess. They repo your car. All right, well, the banks have the right to come take that car back if you stop making the payments, if you've broken that agreement. All right, so that's what default means. You defaulted on the loan, you stop paying on that loan. Okay. Grace period is a term that is used to refer to the time between a due date and when your debt or your monthly payment is actually due. All right, so the grace period is very important because it gives you a period of time, some wiggle room, I would say, to make sure that all your monthly payments fit your budget. Okay, so you might get a 10-day, 15-day grace period or whatever it might be, 5-day grace period. But you got to know those grace periods so you can make sure your payments are all being made on time, but your payments are within your budget, but within when you actually get paid. So if you get paid, let's say twice a month, you get every other biweekly paycheck, so every other week. All right, so this first check of the month is going to go to these loans. Second check's going to go to these loans, so or payments or bills. So you got to make sure that you have that wiggle room in there to pay your bills on time. Term introductory rate is a term that sometimes will be used when you see those commercials for 0% financing for 13 months or 14 months or something like that. So it's kind of a trick, all right? You gotta be smart if you use these, all right? Because it could be a great deal. Let's say you need a bunch of new appliances for your house because you're buying a new house, and Home Depot has a deal going where it's 0% interest for 14 months. So you go and get the Home Depot credit card, you buy the appliances, and you don't owe any interest, all right? You bought, let's say, $3,000 worth of appliances, you owe $3,000, and you're not going to be charged anything above the 3,000 because it's a 0% interest rate. But the trick is that time period. If they say it's 0% for 12 months, you got to pay back that debt within 12 months. If you don't, you've broken the agreement, and now they're going to go back and charge you interest for all 12 months that loan was for. All right, so it could be a useful tool if you use it wisely and you pay off that, what you borrowed in that introductory period. But if you don't, they're going to backload all that interest that you weren't supposed to pay but now have to pay. Okay. All right, next term, minimum payment. Minimum payment is going to be usually with credit cards. So when you have a credit card, you're going to, let's say you borrow $150 on your card. You owe $150. That's your bill. But on the bill, it's going to show minimum payment due $20, $15, $30, something much smaller than what your total amount you owe is. And what happens, and we're going to do a worksheet on this concept, is oftentimes people will just pay the minimum payment. Because as long as you make the minimum payment, your bill is paid on time, which is the key. Okay, it's not late. You're not behind on payments. As long as you pay the minimum by the due date, you're good. However, if you only make the minimum payments over the course of a loan, you're going to run into a problem where it's going to take you forever to pay back that debt. All right, but that's what they want you to do. The credit card companies want you to only pay the minimum payment, because the longer it takes you to pay off that debt, the more interest they get to charge you, and they make out with more money in the end. Okay, so be careful with the minimum payment. It's there. It can assist you if you had let's say you work an hourly job and you just didn't get that many hours in a particular week or month, so you can't pay off the credit card or a certain bill that's got a minimum payment. So it might help you out, but you don't want to get stuck in the rut of only paying the minimum payment, because it'll take forever to pay off that debt. Okay. All right, the term predatory lending, we're going to talk more detail about this when we cover home ownership. This is a lending practice that credit card companies and bankers with mortgages years ago would do things and give loans to people they knew couldn't afford it. Okay, there's a lot of rules and laws have changed when it comes to lending money over the last few years, when it comes to loaning money for houses or credit cards. For instance, credit cards, you have to, if you're under 18 or you can't show proof of income, you have to have a co-signer. So many of you guys would have to have your parents sign with you on a credit card. But in the past, credit card companies would just give out credit cards to anybody and everybody, regardless if they knew you couldn't afford it or afford to pay it back if you use the money. They would even be on, oftentimes, college campuses at the beginning of a school year when freshmen would be showing up. The credit card companies would be all lined up with little stands everywhere, giving out credit cards, letting people apply for credit cards, giving free swag and shirts and all kinds of things you could use for your dorm room, encouraging people to sign up for this credit card. Here's a free shirt. Here's a free this. And then all of a sudden, these 18, 19-year-old freshmen in college have 3-4 credit cards, and they start using them, and they're in debt, and they can't afford to pay it back. So a lot of those rules have changed to avoid the predatory lending, but it still takes place. You got to be careful and be mindful of what type of loan you're taking. Okay. All right, and then the last term here, debit card. A lot of people don't realize the difference between a debit card and a credit card. And if you look at your credit card, why does your credit card or your debit card, your bank card have like a Visa or MasterCard logo on it. Right. So the reason for that is basically Visa and MasterCard is the one processing the transaction. So if you think about it, where or what stores accept Visa and MasterCard? It's everywhere, essentially everywhere. So what that does is when you have the MasterCard or Visa logo on your bank card, your debit card, it allows you to use your debit card anywhere those credit cards are accepted. Now remember, when you use a debit card, the money's coming out of your bank account. When you use a credit card, the money's coming out of your, it's not coming out of a bank account, it's coming money that you're borrowing. It's money you owe back. All right, so that's the key difference. Debit card is money you have, credit card is money you're borrowing. All right, so we covered credit score. I'm going to scroll down to the, just explain the two worksheets I want you guys to complete. So the first one is a credit card statement. So you got two credit card statements. It shows the information that you want to understand with the credit card. So you can see that you got your total amount due or your current amount due. You can look through different things to see what your available credit is. Look for the minimum payment, because those are the numbers that ultimately people have to make sure that they're paying. Okay, so you got credit card statement 1, you got credit card statement 2. Same information, just two different looks. And then what I want you to do is go ahead and fill in the table here. All right, so find this information on the credit card statement above and go ahead and put in the numbers, okay? Just to give you a heads up, annual fee is only on one of them. So for one of these boxes, you'll put $0 because you won't see annual fee on it. Everything else, you should be able to fill up, okay? Or you will be able to fill up. Then the other worksheet, which we'll go through together, right? So when we look at total cost of a loan. So I put this table together of how much would this really cost you if you only pay the minimum payment. So I'm going to do the first one with you, and then you guys can go ahead and complete the second one on your own. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to ask, and I'll make sure I can check your answers and stuff as well. Okay. So the first top thing says total cost of a loan, all right, are going to be affected by three things. Okay. It's going to be the term of the loan, the interest rate, and the down payment. So how much is that loan going to cost you is going to be based on those three things. The term, so how long is it take you to pay it off? What is the interest rate you got? And did you put any money down when you borrowed the money? Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and go through the scenario here. I'll write in the answers for the first one, then you guys will be responsible for the second one. All right, so it says John wants to buy a new 55-inch HD or 55-inch smart HD TV for his college dorm room. Cost is $500. He uses his Visa credit card. It has an APR of 18%. So APR is your interest rate of 18%. Complete the chart below, then answer the questions based on John paying the minimum monthly payment of $25. All right, so the first thing I want you guys to see here is the whole purpose of this worksheet is to show you that if you only make those minimum payments, he borrowed $500, but he's going to pay it off in $25 increments plus interest. It's not always going to be a pretty sight at the end of it. Okay, so I showed you guys how to do the first column here. You got $500 is what he borrowed. You do 500 times 0.18 for 18% interest. All right, you'll have a $90 in interest he's going to owe. So the balance plus the interest comes to $590. If he makes $25 payments for 12 months, that comes out to about $300 for the year. All right, so I just did 25 times 12, and he'll pay off $300. So if you subtract what he owed minus the $300 in payments, that gives him a new balance of $290. And at this point, he's paid for 12 months. Okay, so we'll come down to the beginning of the next row. So he still owes $290. If we do $290 times 0.18, that comes out to $52 in interest. And as you do these guys, you can round up or round down however you want. So your numbers might look slightly different than mine, but it'll be close enough. All right, so let's say $52 in interest. So $290 plus 52 is going to be $342 is what his new balance plus interest is. So as you can see, if he makes $25 a month payments for another 12 months, which is $300, he still won't pay it off in year 2. So he's going to pay another $300 in payments, and you can now have a balance of $42 left in his balance. So at this point, he's paid for another full year. So another 12 months of payments. Still owes $42. All right, so again, if we do 42 times 18, it's gonna be about $8 more in interest. Balance plus interest comes out to about $50. So now we can see that he's gonna pay it off in less than a year. So you just gotta do some basic math to figure out, okay, how many months? If he's paying $25 a month, or $25 a month, how long will it take him to pay it off? All right, so to pay off $50 at 25 bucks a month, they'll be able to pay that full 50 off. His new balance would be $0. And to pay off that $50, it would have been another 2 months of payments. Okay, so now go ahead and answer the two questions. How long will it take John to pay off the TV? So you got 12, 24 plus 2 more, so we got 26 months. 26 months. And then the big question is, what is the total amount John will pay for the TV? So 300 plus 300 comes out to $650. Okay, so this is where you have to individually kind of think about this. Like if you're going to take out a loan like this and do the math on it, you got to be mindful of, well, if I do pay the minimum payment, if that's all I can afford as a college student, is it worth it to me? You got to justify, is that $500 worth taking over 2 years to pay it back and cost you $650? All right, if you justify it, that's on you. All right, I'm not going to tell you you're right or wrong because it's your money. All right, but for $650 over 2 years, always look at the back end. When I'm done paying it off, what is that TV worth 2 years later? It's obviously not going to be worth $500. Is it even worth $200? All right, and then look at it from that perspective and say, okay, now it cost me $650. I paid $200 for it. Okay, if we were in the classroom, I would show you I think I've shown my econ classes in the past an iPod I bought with my first credit card when I was like 19 years old. Stupid purchase. I did this exact thing. I paid the minimum payment. Probably took me close to 2 years to pay off the stupid iPod. 2 years later, the thing was worth nothing. Wouldn't even be able to sell it. I think it was like 4 gigabytes of memory on it, and probably cost me $150, $200 more than the actual price of the iPad original price or iPod original price. So it's not worth it, guys. It sucks. You get in the habit of paying the minimum payment, and you kind of get stuck in the rut. And you say, "Oh, I'll just pay the minimum payment this month, and the next month I'll pay it off," and then you never do. Okay. All right. So go ahead and you can do the second one now that you understand what you need to do. This one's going to be a little bit more of a hassle because you're just going to go row after row after row until this computer that Jill wants to buy in the scenario is paid off. Okay. All right. And then the other worksheet, let me just kind of explain this one to you. The car buying activity looks like this. You can either go to AutoTrader or cars.com, whatever you want to use, or if you have another car site that you like to look at. You're going to go through buying 2 cars. All right. The first car needs to be between $6,000 and $15,000. All right. So kind of a realistic price for a car. I gave you all the information. You got the interest rate, sales tax, all those things you're going to need to know about when you're buying a car. So let's say you're on AutoTrader's website and you find a car you like and it says the retail price is $11,500. All right. So that's where you start. You just kind of do step by step. Hopefully this math will make sense. You type in 11,000. If this is the one you want, type in $11,500 here. All right. And then go ahead and start going down the list here. So then you'll do retail price times the sales tax, retail price plus total taxes, and then just slowly work through each of these steps. When you get down to this section, this is where it gets a little confusing because you have 2 different loans. You're going to look at what is it going to be for a 5-year and a 3-year loan. Okay, so just make sure you're using the right spot. So if it's, whatever you put here for C1 is what you're using here for C1, and then so on. Okay, so after you do that, you're going to see what would your monthly payment be for that particular car over 60 months and over a 36-month loan. Okay, so again, the first car you do, it needs to be in these standards. So take some time, look for a car that you would actually maybe want to try to get a loan for based on the make, the model, the color, the year, and the miles. All right. But these are the parameters I'm starting because you're not going to get a loan for a car that's cheaper than $6,000 over 10 years and more than 100,000 miles. If you're getting a loan for that, it's going to be at one of those places that say, no credit, bad credit, everyone's accepted, and you're going to be paying a 40% interest rate, which you don't want. Okay, so we're going to do kind of a realistic car. Pick a car within that price range, less than 10 years old, and less than 100,000 miles. All right, and once you find that car that you like, go ahead and start the process. Okay, so that's the first car you're going to do, and then for the second one, do the same thing, but this time find your dream car, something that's expensive, over 25 grand. It can be any car you want. It could be that Ferrari, it could be that Lamborghini, or some crazy lifted up pickup truck or something like that. And go ahead and find your dream car. Over 25 grand, do the same thing to see what your car payment would be for something like that. All right, and then when you're done, same thing, put the make, model, year, miles, and why you chose this car. And then this one you can go ahead and submit on Google Classroom when you're done. All right, again, if you have questions, feel free to email me or send me a message through Remind, and I'll do my best to help you guys out, and we'll go from there.